Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by
TikTok Cafe, located on Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our menu offers breakfast dishes like our Western omelet made from scratch biscuits, grits, egg sunny side up, and lunch specials like our homemade cheeseburgers with a side of golden brown fries. Don't forget about our weekday lunch special, and that every Tuesday is steak night. TikTok Cafe, open 24/7 at Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie.
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to all. Got a great show for you tonight. Tonight we'll talk a little Saints, we'll talk some Pelicans, we'll talk LSU, we'll talk Tulane. Early signing period is going on right now. We'll get into that. And we got a great panel to break it down for you. Doug Mouton, WWL Sports Director, is with us. Renee Nato of CrescentCitySports.com and so much more. And we'll talk to those guys in just a moment. I always like to start off the show finding out from our guest what's going on in their lives professionally. Well, we've got a little bit of a change in your host lives professionally here. Starting in January, I will be moving my radio show to Sports 1280. It'll be noon to 2. Very excited about the prospect of moving over and joining that radio station. I've had a wonderful time over the last 5 years over at 990 AM WGSO, but the chance to be able to get on the same station with Duncan and Holder, Corey Johnson, Chris Gordy, Josh Ennis was too big of a situation for me to pass up, and looking forward to some great things in 2018. And of course, this show, as always, continues as well. So again, looking forward to that. Beginning of January, Sports 1280, noon to 2. And gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. And busy time for you guys as well, huh?
Yeah, we expect to be busy well into January, which we haven't been, obviously, the last 3 seasons with the Saints. Yeah, it's a fun time. I'm going to make the trip to Tampa and to LSU's bowl game back-to-back. I am personally greatly looking forward to that, and then hoping that we're turning right around and having Saints playoffs right after that.
Yes.
It looks for now like we won't be getting a first-round bye, but obviously that'll still play out in the next 2 weeks.
Of course, you're on nightly on Channel 4, and of course, the granddaddy of them all, Fourth Down on 4.
Yeah, Fourth Down on 4 every Sunday night at 10:35. Now, actually, the next 2 weeks, just Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, we're going to do a special 20-minute version. We'll do a 15-minute newscast, then a 20-minute Fourth Down on 4, where we'll completely go through the Saints and what happens the next 2 weeks. That's a couple of holiday editions, but 10:35, we're on 52 Sundays a year.
I don't miss it, believe, and nobody does. I mean, again, come on, you set the DVR, you're there, you're watching it.
Thank you.
Renee, thanks for coming down again. Renee Nato. Renee, you're involved in a lot of stuff. Let the folks know about it.
And I've heard about Fourth Down on 4 a couple of times.
Yeah, I think I've seen you on that show
once or twice, yes.
But thank you, Eric, and congratulations, man,
Thank
on
you, my
1280. That's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, it's
I know
gonna be
you much
wonderful.
deserved.
Thank you.
Work with CrescentCitySports.com, CBS Radio for a lot of events, Saints, Pelicans, bowl games. Just finished about 9 games on college football as an analyst, ESPN, CST, some other networks, and I'm trying to think of anything else I'll think of. That's really about it.
Yeah. For now.
Well, I think that keeps me busy, but yeah, it's a busy time. And you know, in football, as you both know, never goes away. There's different phases.
Right.
The season's over, you got signing day recruiting, OTAs, You know, so there's different phases of football, so it never really goes away.
And you two are the best in the business. Thanks so much for being down here tonight. Guys, let's start with the Pro Bowl. Breeze, Ingram, Kamara, Jordan, Thomas, Lattimore. Man, fantastic. But I want to talk about the snubs. I mean, how does the offensive line, one lineman, I don't know whether it's Unger, whether it's Walford, whether it's Ramczyk. I understand the situation with Teron Armstead because of the injury this year. And, you know, maybe the case can't be made for Pete at this point. But you look at that right side of that line, those guys, does one of those guys or multiple guys deserve to go? And then Thomas Morstead, who has been a weapon for this team, who doesn't get the respect around the league, at least when it comes to the voting for the Pro Bowl. Those are the two areas that I felt that were maybe kind of snubbed. Your thoughts?
We were talking last week at work. We have some fun arguments inside the sports office. And I said there were 7 guys that I thought really should get in. It was the 6 that got in and Morstead, who I really thought would. From the offensive line standpoint, I totally get what you're saying, but Armstead's been too hurt this year. Ramczyk has probably been the best of the 5 and rookie offensive linemen just because of the way the voting goes. You really have to play a guy to know him. It takes offensive linemen more than any other position. Just takes some time to get known by everyone else. Unger, I think, is one of the alternates. But I think Ramczyk deserves it the most, and rookie offensive linemen are almost never going to get it.
Yeah.
You kind of knew that going in.
I mean, number one offense, when you look, you're putting a quarterback, a wide receiver, and your 2 running backs in the Pro Bowl. How can that happen with a great offensive line?
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
You said something I was hoping you would bring up right up the bat. The guy who should get the most valuable person in that locker room is Dan Ruchar, offensive line coach. I'm going to tell you why. Breeze has only been sacked 17 times. The second tie for the lowest in the NFL. New England Patriots, Brady's 31 times. Philadelphia Eagles, 31 sacks as well. The Rams, 24 sacks, okay? The Saints have the number 1 offense in the NFL and the 4th best rushing offense in the NFC. And Drew Brees only 7 interceptions, so he don't feel as much pressure. Of course, he gets rid of it. But Unger, Armstead, and Pete have only given up 3 sacks each. And Ramczyk has only given up 2 sacks each for a rookie. Ruchar has done a great job, not only with what he has, but plugging in Clemente and guys, as somebody goes down, he's got to plug him in, moving Pete from left guard to left tackle, not easy task.
And they didn't have Zach Strief all year.
And they didn't have Zach Strief. So he has done a great job with about 7 or 8 parts there on offensive line and keeping Drew Brees' jersey clean. And the rushing attack, those guys, Ingram and Kamara, doesn't do it by themselves. They got holes to run through. And I got to tell you, I don't think he gets the credit, Ruchar, that he deserves. And he's a guy, as a Pro Bowl coach, assistant coach, if there was such a thing, really, he deserves to go because his work has really been a lot of reason for the success of the Saints this year.
You know, guys, not just the opening of the holes, but the blocking on the second level.
Yeah, no doubt.
Huh?
Yeah, well, and actually, you saw Brandon Coleman last week with the 2 fumbles.
Right.
It's one thing that and look, it's the reason Willie Steed's not playing as much is that you're getting big blockers downfield. And on the offensive line, the Saints have been a little lucky in that all the injuries haven't come in bunches. They've had one at a time. You talk about they started with 5 with Ramczyk as the 6. He's played all year with Strief out. Then Clemente, who's moved all over the place, and so has Pete. And then Josh Laribas, who's had to play. Yes. And luckily, they haven't had to go any deeper than that. They haven't had 2 or 3 miss the same week where they had to go deeper than that number because those guys are all quality NFL offensive linemen. I think Dan Rocher has done a terrific job with them. I agree 100%. It's been the unsung part of this team, but it's been humongously big, obviously.
And I think Zach Strief, and we both know the kind of player he is. He was. And I think he's going to be going after this year. But he has been a great coach, and people look up to him. He's very intelligent, and I think he's had a hand in the success of this offensive line as well.
You could see it last year, even in this year, even when he was on the sideline. Talking to the rookies, talking to the young players. He was doing it in uniform, he's doing it out of uniform as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I tell you, I'm the president of the Press Club of New Orleans, and last year when we did our annual awards, we came up with the idea to ask Zach Strief to host it, right? And we didn't really know what we were going to get. And honestly, we've always gotten journalists to come. We've had Robin Roberts come down. We had Hoda Kotb come down. We've had a lot of people come down to host it. And I took some flack. People were saying, you really want a football player to do it. And we showed up the day before. and we have a lunch with the host to lay out all the responsibilities. And I told him, you're going to have to talk for about 10 minutes at the beginning. He showed up at that lunch with a typed papers of what he wanted to say. He said, if you wouldn't mind, would you proofread this to make sure I'm going in the right direction? How does a guy spend 11 years in the NFL without spectacular physical ability, right? And obviously he's got physical ability, but he's not the guy putting up the great 40 time and all that. How does that guy stay 11 years in the NFL at a high level? By being the most prepared guy in the room. And it turns out he knocked it out of the ballpark. He was unbelievably funny and perfectly on point. The Convention and Visitors Bureau caught up with him afterwards to ask him to speak for the city. Wow. He's that good, no kidding. And that was sort of the window into sort of who he is and how a guy gets there. And I was so blown away by how he did. If he wanted to be a coach, he'd be a great coach. If he wanted to be an analyst or TV analyst, he could be at the highest level. I don't think he's going to do that, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of what he does, and I do agree that he's had a role on this team quietly.
Right, and then it's interesting what you had mentioned about what happens next year, because where does he go now? I mean, at this point, I mean, he's not a guy. I mean, he's a prideful guy. He's not going to want to sit, but again, he's been a great mentor. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm with you though. I think he retires as a Saint this year.
And Will Smith was coming back as a coach. I think Zach Streif's coming back as a coach.
Wow, that's interesting. That Northwestern education's worked out pretty good for him.
Yeah,
no doubt. Let's talk about the positives of the Pro Bowl, and I'll start with you first, Doug. Breeze, Ingram, Kamara, Thomas, Jordan, Lattimore. Take it from here.
Yeah, look, first of all, Lattimore, I didn't know if Lattimore would get the recognition. And I got to tell you, there's now analytic websites, and I know people like to beat them up a little bit. But I tell you, it does open your eyes to some obvious things. And I saw a couple of weeks ago on Pro Football Focus, the 64 starting cornerbacks in the NFL. Marshawn Lattimore had the 4th highest grade. And Ken Crawley, who hasn't gotten enough credit, was 11th. I'm talking about 64 starting cornerbacks. But look, and you may disagree with their grading system, but Crawley's been a really quiet surprise. Yes. So I didn't know if Lattimore would get the recognition just because he's a rookie and because they've thrown away from him so much. I mean, cornerback's the one position where the better you are, the less you do, because they're going to be going away from you. So I knew Kamara and Ingram and Thomas because of the rise of fantasy football. The guys who you score get noticed, and they're pretty appropriate at running back and wide receiver and Drew Brees. But Lattimore was one I didn't know, and I didn't know if Cam Jordan would. And I was so happy to see those two, because those two are, to me, those two are the superstars of the defense. And then they've had a lot of good parts behind them.
Yeah, and Jordan kind of underrated. When you look at the sack number only, you say, wow, 10 sacks.
Right.
But again, it's everything else he does.
Bats balls down. And, no matter what level you play, you need a guy on defense that the offense has to scheme to, and that is Cam Jordan.
Right.
They have to know where he is, and they have to double team him, or they have to chip him or something. They have to know where Cam Jordan is at all times. And Michael Thomas, he's put up great stats, but I did some research, and you got Randy Moss, Odell Beckham, A.J. Green, I'm trying to think, John Jefferson, Amari Cooper, and Mike Evans. That's 6 guys have all had back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving years since their rookie season.
Right.
Okay, the first 2 years out. And he's in that fraternity now. And that's some classy guys.
Yes, indeed.
Now, Moss went his first 5 years with 1,000 yards. But, I mean, you talk about that's the kind of receiver he is. And they thought he was. And, I mean, we've all seen his work habits and everything. He's a big physical guy. He's really, really earned everything he has, and he takes it real. He works very much like Marcus Colston does. Yeah. I mean, he's very meticulous about what he does and how he works and stuff. He's a little faster than Marcus Colston, but I mean, he approaches the game very, very much like Marcus Colston.
Guys, Mark Ingram, obviously a Heisman Trophy winner, first-round pick for the Saints. He's made himself into an all-around back.
Oh, yeah,
he didn't
no
come
doubt.
to New Orleans as a finished product.
Right, no doubt, no doubt. He came as the guy who wasn't going to be your pass catcher. He catches the ball very well. He's good in pass protection. He does it all. And obviously, people see what Alvin Kamara does. And talking about Mike Thomas, I think Alvin Kamara is his best friend. I mean, Alvin Kamara is the guy that in a passing game you have to look out for in the same way teams had to look out for Reggie Bush. Yes. And I've said this like 10 times now. I am stunned that Alvin Kamara wasn't in the Heisman Trophy race last year. What were they doing at Tennessee to not get this guy the ball way more than he is now? He's unbelievable, and I think the two of them have been nice, and I think looking forward, if you could add a Brandon Cooks type receiver back to this mix next year. I said this, I was talking to a friend of mine today who's one of these Saints going to jump off the bridge if they don't win the division kind of guys.
Yeah.
And I said, look, you're not going to like me saying this, but this year, no matter what happens in the last 2 games, no matter what happens in the playoffs, was an enormously successful season. Enormously. You have now built a foundation in 1 year to move forward for the next 5. And you can look at this team and see where they could use help in a very doable way.
Yeah.
This might not be the year for the run, but that run is coming, and it's coming soon.
Well, I totally agree with you. I talked about on the radio show a few weeks ago that you look at last year's draft and this year's draft, last year's free agency, the year before free agency, you look at the back-to-back classes there, and then you start saying that, you know what, when you want to look at depth on a team, one more draft class, one more free agency period, and now you got that depth that maybe the Saints lack right now.
And you brought in guys like Klein and Okafor, who are tremendous additions.
Great signings.
And we all knew in training camp that Marcus Williams, he jumped off the page in practices. Lattimore was great, and we would never know what Anzalone would have done because the guy was starting and he was going to have a really good rookie year, and he went down. So and he'll be back, but Marcus Williams will be better, and also Sheldon Rankins. He's made a big jump from last year from the injuries and everything, and he's really performing well. And, without his mentor from last year, side-by-side, his sidekick and everything, he's doing a great job.
Yeah, and I will say this, too. To me, that's one of the great places to build. I think Tyler Davison, when you talk about unsung heroes in this team, I think Tyler Davison has quietly become a really good player on the inside. I mean, you've got 2 quality defensive tackles you're starting with. You're going to, if it's not Okafor, that's a spot you're going to have to get. But Okafor and Klein, and I think the Saints learned from 14, the first year when they went down, when the locker room was toxic, and Sean Payton said that afterwards. And I tell you, I was in that locker room, and you felt it when you were in there. Okafor and Klein were both unbelievably good people in there. And you could tell they said they were going to make an effort to get the right kind of people, not just players, but people. And Okafor and Klein, I thought, even though they're both out for the year now, I thought they were both great signings, and I think they have just their personalities have had a great influence on the team.
Well, no, I was going to add to that. Every team in the NFL, coaches have said this, you can always add maybe 2 or 3 guys that a little bit you're hard to deal with, if you will. But if you hope when they get in the mix in the locker room, the other guys who have a positive influence on them, there is no guys in this locker room that they have to worry about, other guys they have to influence. Yes. They are character guys top to bottom. And you can credit Sean and Mickey and Ireland.
Ireland, yeah.
Yes, for putting that together, because this is a great character team. You don't have to, pick anybody up. Guys that help one another and pushing one another, and they get along very, very well. I mean, from all we could see. But I really, really think that's a credit to the staff to put the kind of people in that locker room.
Guys, would you agree that Peyton went back to the formula that worked for him in 2006?
Yeah, I think so. And look, when you talk about who's putting things together, this organization has Sean Payton at the top and everyone else in secondary roles.
Right.
So if you don't like what they're doing in any way, it's Sean Payton. And if you like what they're doing in any way, it's Sean Payton. There's no doubt who's steering that ship in Metairie. There's no doubt they have gone back to the beginning. They said that 2 years ago. And it seems like it took them 2 years to get there. And like I said, I love the pieces they've put in place. Young pieces across the board, secondary, linebacker, defensive line, offensive line, running back, wide out. The only wild card, you got to keep number 9, and you got to keep him at this level. I see no reason he can't do it for 2 or 3 or 4 more years at this level, and I would ride that pony and keep riding it.
Guys, Reggie Bush announced this week he's going to retire as a Saint. There's a petition on social media right now for him to bring the bat back and take the Saints out of the locker room on Sunday against the Falcons. Maybe have him do the Who Dat chant. Talk about Reggie Bush, what he meant to this team. A lot of people expected Reggie Bush to be the same player that he was at USC in the pros. He's not the inside runner, but the Saints don't win the Super Bowl without a Reggie Bush, and they've tried to duplicate Reggie Bush since Reggie Bush left. They finally found that guy in Kamara after Sproles. He's been a big part of this offense. He's a big part of the resurgence of the Saints.
Yeah, I agree. And Renee said it before when he was talking about Cam Jordan, the guy you scheme for. Reggie Bush was the guy. In 06 and in 09, Reggie Bush was the guy that other teams had to look at the Saints offense, figure out where he was, and design their entire defense around that. Even when he was a decoy, which was a lot.
Yes.
Marcus Colston's success can be directly tied to teams
Yes.
focusing on Reggie Bush, and Colston could run free. Reggie Bush was the stirring of the tea. That was Reggie Bush, and that's what he did. Was just a great player here. In retrospect, you certainly wish he hadn't gone, but he was the guiding force of that team, no doubt about it.
And you think of what he did. He was such a high-profile Heisman Trophy winner at USC, and he came here and accepted his role. A lot of people thought when he got here he was going to rush for 2,000 yards, catch 72 passes, that kind of stuff. And he didn't put up the gaudy numbers that everybody thought he would, but he was every bit, as Doug said, man, he was the guy that you had to watch at any time. He could bust one. And as a punt returner, I mean, he was just dangerous anytime he had his hands on the ball. And if he was split out wide, if he was in a slot, you had one guy or two guys bracket him and making sure he wouldn't get the ball. And that makes a big difference. It opened up other things.
No doubt. I remember when he was drafted, that draft, I was covering the draft at Saints, and they had a tent actually on the Saints facility where fans were packed that day. Saints had the second pick in the draft. The tent was packed with fans. There was all kinds of talk that Reggie Bush wasn't going to go number one and was going to be around, and that was the year Clowney went number one?
Yeah, no, it was Mario Williams.
Right, yes,
Mario
of course.
Williams.
I'm thinking the right position, right. Mario Williams goes number one, and then the whole tent started chanting, Reggie, and then there was ESPN scrolled on the screen, and it's all in this tent. And there are hundreds of people in there, and it is loud as the Superdome on game day. And ESPN scrolls on the screen, Jets in talks with Saints to move up and get Reggie Bush, right? That was, and the whole place goes dead quiet. And then they walk up to the podium and announce that it's Reggie Bush for the Saints. I will never forget the moment in that tent. I was in there with Troy Toops, who was a photographer with me at the time. We actually won awards for the story because it was so unbelievable. The tent literally exploded. And Reggie just brought something to this city, to the team, and it was here as long as he was here.
And you love the fact, us being native New Orleanians, that he wants to come back and retire as a Saint.
That says a lot, the way he was treated. And he was always a respectful guy. Whenever he had a microphone and camera in front of him, he was always a respectful guy. And this is going to say a lot, but there were just a few players when you know that you thought they could lift the whole team. And I remember when Archie Manning got here. Every time he took a snap, you thought something exciting was going to happen. And that was Reggie. And he just, there was times I saw him signing a lot of autographs out in the hot sun for a long, long time, and he could have easily gotten away. And I remember one particular time in part of the city that he was signing autographs, and people from the Saints or his handlers were saying, "Are you ready to go?" And he kept signing. So it's little things like that that are not really little things.
Yeah, and look, the Saints would not have been the Saints back then.
No doubt.
And really set the stage for what we're seeing now with Kamara, because that's kind of the second coming, where the difference is Kamara can run between the tackles.
And Peyton's really creative with an offense. And Reggie Bush and Kamara are the kind of players that let you be creative.
Yes, no doubt. Guys, Saints 31, Jets 19. Saints now 10-4. Boy, I tell you what, trap game. If there ever was a trap game, Saints got out of it. Not totally unscathed because of the injuries, but nevertheless they got out of it with Atlanta sandwiched in 2 games within 17 days.
Yeah, no doubt. And Christmas Eve, the Falcons coming to town, everything on the line. Saints need 1 win to get into the playoffs in the last 2. They win the last 2, obviously they win the division. It's pretty simple what they need to do. Getting a first-round bye is super hard at this point because you don't really have any tiebreakers. But, man, to come down to Christmas Eve and to be a game this big, I mean, look, this is what you want for us covering it, for fans in the city. I mean, so much excitement around this. It's a great matchup. They played some great games against each other. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And the Falcons, like the Saints, started slow this year. You didn't think they're going to get back in the thick of things. And I was talking about sacks. Matt Ryan's been dropped 18 times, Drew Brees 17. And I think Matt Ryan's thrown 11 interceptions, Drew Brees 7. I mean, the stats-wise, the quarterbacks, very, very similar. It's great that the Saints are playing in New Orleans for this game. There's so much on the line. Yes, they win one of the last 2 games here in the playoffs, but if they win this game, if they lose this game, the Falcons take the conference.
Right.
And the division, rather.
Division, right.
Division. But you know, everybody saw the game on Thursday night and thinking if this would have happened, that would have happened and stuff, and it doesn't make any difference. The Saints could have won that game, and they can win this game. And I think overall, the Saints are just a better team than the Falcons right now.
I would agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and we have a website where I'm forced to pick every NFL game every week, and I picked them to lose in Atlanta. I mean, look, I feel bad saying that on TV because people get mad at you when you say it, but when I'm making picks, I got to be honest.
Sure.
And I thought Atlanta would beat them in Atlanta. This week I have the Saints winning. I think the Saints will win at home, but I think it's going to be a good ball game. You know, anytime you're running Julio Jones out on the field, it's fun to watch. And look, the Thursday, I hate the fact that they had to do it on a Thursday. Thursday games are always so sloppy and always so injury riddled, and a full plan isn't in. This will be interesting to see, and the coaches get a whole week at least to get ready.
All hands on deck, right, guys?
Yeah, and everything goes. I mean, you know, and the thing is that look at the games the Falcons have taken over the history back in the 70s and 80s that the Falcons have stolen under the Saints' noses, you know, with the Big Ben play and everything else. So
that 2017 score.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, come on, that just. I mean,
and so fans who've been around a long time know this, and they can't wait. You know, I know fans right now at the Dome probably tailgating, ready for Sunday.
It's playoffs now, though, isn't it? I mean, you got to consider this week, next week. From this point on, it's playoffs.
Yeah, the Falcons game felt like a playoff game.
No,
you could sort of feel the atmosphere. Oh, no doubt. I mean, you got 2 games left. You got to win 1, and if you can get 2, then just like in 11, when the Saints were the 3rd seed, remember they beat Detroit at home and then had to go to San Francisco and had bad luck. I mean, to me, the Saints have had 2 Super Bowl runs in 09 and 11. One time they won it, one time they didn't. They've got a shot this year. I'm not, I want to see how these last 2 play out to see if they're at that level.
And that's where the depth comes in because you've had some injuries now. A.J. Klein goes on injury reserve. You know, Manti Te'o's played pretty well.
Sure.
Marty's played well in spots there. You know, again, I still think Craig Robbins is the best linebacker on this team.
Absolutely. And the thing is that so many guys have been in favor of 18 games. This is why I can never see 18 games. And the NFLPA would never allow it because you would be playing in a Super Bowl with Tyler Palko, you know, or something like that. So I'm just saying, you would be playing. You'd be playing practice squad guys. Really, 11 guys. You had 6 on a practice squad, and the networks wouldn't allow it. But you know, the thing is that the Saints have been fortunate to pick up guys again like Marty and pick up guys who have come in and been serviceable and very, very good. And it's the teams that do the best scouting and the best and sign the best players, and the Saints have done that.
And you talked about injuries before. The Saints have almost been a little bit fortunate in injuries. Craig Robertson not getting a lot of snaps is maybe the best player on your bench. So Klein going down. Look, Klein was playing well. It just happens to be the one spot where you got a quality guy ready to step in. Now, if they lost Klein and then Robertson, then you're starting to get in a lot more trouble. But the injuries have happened in a way. My guess is Larry Warford won't play this week, but you'll have everybody else. So you can move the pieces around and make it work. You're not missing 2 and 3 guys at once. And they've had a lot of injuries, but they've been fortunate that they haven't all come in one position, and they've been nicely spread out.
And the thing is, too, you know, as you mentioned his name, Josh Laribas. I know he's not a household name. He's
played well.
But he has come in and done very, very well. And the fact that the Saints have signed guys like that, Eric, and the tight ends keep going down, and they keep signing good tight ends that have fit the offense and know their roles. And again, that's scouting, and that's Sean and Mickey doing a great job.
Doug, you were there. Everybody wants to point to the officiating. 11 penalties against the Saints, 9 turned into first downs for the Falcons. You know, some of those are, you could maybe say were, you know, kind of faux calls. Some they were legitimate calls. The injuries, losing Kamara early hurt them. Lattimore kind of playing really on one leg. They're looking like they're going to have a pretty fairly healthy team going in, especially when you talk about 2 guys that didn't participate much in a guy like Kamara, and then Lattimore, who's trying to play Julio Jones on one leg.
Right, no question about it. And that's why I like the Saints' chances a lot more. Now, I didn't know Kamara would go down in the first game, but yes, Kamara changes the offense, changes everything about what you do in the same way Reggie Bush did. You were talking about that before. And I'm not sure Kamara's not even better. I mean, it's too early to say that, but Kamara's been that good where he's in that kind of a conversation. And yeah, Lattimore's been great all year. That was the one game you could tell he wasn't quite right, and it was, without question, of the games he was on the field, his worst game. It'll be really interesting to see him being able to run against Julio Jones. Yeah, I like the Saints' chances this week, even without Klein and Okafor. They've lost some pieces, and Larry Warford, but I like the Saints' chances this week.
Give us some keys.
You know, I really think in a lot of ways the special teams are going to play a big part in that. Morstead, a return game, not allowing the Falcons to get good field position. The Saints are going to have to run the ball effectively, and they've shown they can. I mean, they're the number 4 rushing offense in the NFC, but they have to do it consistently, and they cannot become a one-dimensional team, and they have to try to make the Falcons a little one-dimensional, because the Falcons with Devontae Freeman and Julio Jones, if you can shut one of those guys down or kind of keep them, shut down a little bit, that'll make a big difference. And if the Saints can keep the offense spread around a little bit, 50-50 kind of passing, rushing, and maybe, keep Devontae Freeman a little bit shut down, that'll make a big difference.
You got to keep Matt Ryan in the pocket, too.
Yes.
He likes to sneak out the pocket every now and then and get first downs, make something happen. He's not a real runner, but he's done that in the past. And especially in a game like this, you got to believe he's going to do it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I was talking to P.J. Williams in the locker room after the first Atlanta game. Look, the secondary did a solid job of forcing Matt Ryan into mistakes. And he said that Matt Ryan is a guy that they know will, Brett Favre-ish, will force throws, will get frustrated and try. And the Saints did a great job of that. 3 interceptions. Yeah. And the Saints know that. They did a really nice job of sort of confusing him, or a combination of confusing and frustrating him into some bad throws. Ryan's going to make a lot of really good throws and a lot of really good plays, but he's a guy, and to me, it's the difference between Drew Brees, although Drew Brees made the crucial mistake at the end of that game. The difference between Drew Brees and guys like Matt Ryan is Brees won't get frustrated, won't make those kind of throws. He'll do all the good things Ryan does, but won't do the bad things. And then Drew Brees made the one critical mistake. Given all the injuries, given all the penalties, given everything, they have a second down at the Falcons' 11 and could easily kick the field goal, and Drew Brees forced one in, and he knew it, and he was angry at himself in the locker room. You could see the frustration. But even given everything, Saints still could have won that game.
Yeah, no doubt.
And there's something else that Matt Ryan does a good job of using those tight ends, very much like Drew Brees.
Oh, yeah, true.
And that's going to be a lot of pressure on linebackers and Marcus Williams and Vaccaro to stick with the tight ends, because throwing to the tight ends for 6, 7, 8 yards first down kind of stuff, that's going to chip away and move down the field. And if they happen to shut down, if you want to say shut down Julio, keep him to 2 or 3 catches, they'll use those tight ends and make up the difference for what he may not produce.
And Kenny Vaccaro didn't play 3/4 of that game. He was another guy that got hurt and didn't play.
Right. Guys, when I look at that Atlanta defense, especially over the last few weeks, it reminds me a little bit of the 2009 defense of the Saints, a physical defense. You remember that team was hitting. They were knocking guys out of the game. I mean, you look at the walking wounded with Tampa on Monday. You go back to the Thursday night game with the Saints. You better be knowing that Atlanta's coming out with defensively, and they're going to hit you. And the Saints have to be prepared for that.
No doubt about it. Atlanta's defense starts with Deion Jones, who's the most likable guy you will ever meet, from the West Bank, from Jesuit High School, came back here over the summer to hold a camp for kids. A guy who does everything the right way, maybe without question, the fastest linebacker in the NFL,
yes.
And can run with backs and wide receivers, and single-handedly made the craziest athletic play in the end zone to wrap up the win for the Falcons the first time. To me, he's what makes it go for Atlanta's defense, and he is so good.
And I knew both Duke Riley and Debo when they were in New Orleans. Had him on the recruiting show many times. And when I went up to LSU for media day and stuff like that, those are 2 guys I used to seek out. They were always together. And it's funny, they're on the same team. And a little part of me sometimes, when the Falcons do well, no matter who they play, I'm a little happy for them, because I like both those guys.
I'd like to be happy for them, but
well, I mean, I don't want to
be happy for them.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I mean, I certainly want the Saints to win, but when they both play well, I'm glad.
Final thought on the Saints and Falcons. Renee, I'll start with you. What happens?
I think the Saints win. I think it'll be a 4 or 5 point game, and I think the Saints will win.
I think the Saints win by a touchdown. I like the Saints' chances this week.
Beautiful.
Nothing deeper than that, but I like. But it's scary.
Right. No. Well, there are no secrets between these teams.
Right.
And that's the one thing about this round robin tournament for all divisions now in the NFL. The way they set the schedule up, you're playing your division opponents at the end. Unfortunate thing is, it looks like the top 3 teams in NFC South may end up in the playoffs.
Right.
You may have to play one of these teams a third time.
Right.
And that's very, very difficult.
A 3-6 game could definitely be 2 teams from the division.
No doubt. Doug Mouton and Renee Nato are our guests tonight. I'm your host, Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll be right back.
Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family owned and operated since 1989. Burkhardt has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhardt's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhardt's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhardt's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or amcofencecompany.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Doug Mouton, Sports Director at WLAE-TV, Channel 4 here in New Orleans, and Renee Nato of CrestCitySports.com, and a whole lot more. Both are on the panel tonight. Guys, great discussion about the Saints. Let's shift gears to the early signing period, something that's brand new for the colleges. But in LSU's case, and even Tulane's case, it's a good thing. There are a lot of teams that are in flux right now with changes on their coaching staff, etc. There's some stability in both those programs. I'll start with you, Doug. Talk a little bit about LSU's early signing. Of course, kind of explain what the early signing date is and of course, how long it'll last. Give us the whole nine.
Yeah, you said it well, and that's the big thing. This favors the stable college football programs. Normally, what is it, the second Wednesday in February? Is that it? First Wednesday in February is National Signing Day, has been forever. Now we've added an early signing period in December. It's 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that kids can sign up now, and it's especially valuable, I guess, for a lot of kids will actually graduate from high school in December and then can go right to the school and get involved in spring practices. And if you want to contribute as a freshman, obviously spring practices make an enormous difference. So it favors the schools with more stability, although I haven't heard a lot of coaches who like it, but that's okay. It's not about the coaches, it's about the kids.
Right. And the kids wanted this,
right?
And
the kids wanted to do it. Look, it's pressure packed if you've got schools on you. Obviously, a kid has never been through it before. By definition, he only does it once. And you talk to kids, and I don't care who they are, whether they're being recruited by 3 schools or 63 schools, it's hard. They're getting phone calls, they're getting letters. And at the end of their recruiting period, every kid just wants to get it over with. So for the kids who want to get it over with, this gives them an early chance, and it helps those kids. And so to me, that means it's a good thing. All right, LSU's class. Clearly, Ed Ogeron he took a bullseye and threw it at big guys, right? He went big. There's 18 players on his list. He's got 10 linemen on that list. Went after JUCO offensive linemen who can step in right away. There's not the flashy guy yet in this early signing period. That one still could come. But there's a ton of huge size. I think it's 5 defensive tackles. It's 10 linemen altogether. LSU's class is big, and it's where his team was weak this year on the offensive line and the defensive line, and he clearly went right at it.
Right. They targeted 21. They got 18 so far. But go ahead.
And he signed 2 guys who are going to be starters. The 2 junior college guys will start on the offensive line next year. So that's 2 spots right there. He also signed a couple of guys, Hines and Dare Rosenthal, who fancy themselves as defensive tackles, but have both played offense. And one or both of those guys are going to be offensive linemen. Hines is like 6'3", 355. He's been playing guard. He wants to be a nose tackle. And Dare Rosenthal is 6'7", 327. He wants to be a defensive tackle, but he's played offense. Well, guess what? Why don't we take a peek and see if you can play tackle? One of both of those guys are going to get a long look, because if they happen to put him on offensive line, again, they're going to have to convince him to do that. That is tremendous depth in the offensive line. Then you got those 2 freshmen coming back from last year who were starters. But they did a great job. And the thing is that what I don't like about, there's a lot of 3-star guys that are going to get left out in the cold. And with all the changes in the SEC, especially with new coaches coming in, I've never heard as much as I have this year of players being told after they committed to a school that, oh, well, can you come here in December? Well, I can't graduate. Well, we're going to have to move on without you. More players being chased away. Or a guy who's playing wide receiver, we want to look at you as a cornerback. You don't think you play there? Well, I don't know now. So that's happened a lot more this year I've heard of than any in the past. And you look at a lot of coaches coming in and taking over at Mississippi State, at Ole Miss or whatever, Arkansas and all this. And I would say just those schools are doing it, but a lot of kids have been chased away. And this is very much like the 4- and 5-star guys, like the NFL draft. You got the 1st and the 2nd rounders are still out there, and they know they're going to land somewhere. But these 3-star kids are a little worried, and you may have some very good players left out in the cold, and you may see some very good 3-star players in the spring go as preferred walk-ons at schools that you've never seen before. Not a lot, but a few of them, because it's gonna be between a rock and a hard place. Because remember, you can't sign 30 guys anymore. 25 and that's it. And they have to be very selective. You better have your grades. And so coaches are trying to move the chips around a little bit, make sure it all fits. And they're trying to hold. LSU's going up to 8 or 9 more guys. You only have room for about 4 or 5 more.
Right.
Something ain't going to work.
They've gone after, as Doug said, the big guys. What about the skill position players?
They did very well, and they still got some guys they're going to get.
The kid from Parkway is coming out on Friday.
Terrace Marshall. And I would be very surprised if he didn't go to LSU. He's a big time guy. He's an A.J. Green type of guy. Really, he's great catching radius, 6'3". But they got some good running backs. The Harold Joyner guy is the guy they really like. He's 6'3", 218 out of Alabama. The problem with him is he's 6'3". He's already a big running back. If he grows an inch or two, he may grow to a tight end. And that's why some schools are holding off. Alabama and Auburn were looking at him as a potential running back, as a tight end. And that's why, it's one of the reasons he was looking at LSU, because LSU promised him a running back. But if he's a 6'5" guy, that's going to be a big running back.
It's going to be tough.
I would still like to see LSU go after Puka Williams when the
Do you think they will?
Oh no, they're definitely.
They're certainly super high on him.
Do you think that he'll sign? He had the commitment to Kansas. I know he's wavering from that.
Right.
I don't think he'll end up there.
He said he's working on his grades. That's his issue now.
But I was told he does have the grades.
Right.
And LSU, it's never been as hot as it is right now with Puka Williams.
I'll say this, and I've covered high school football in Louisiana since '92, so it's been it's been a little while, 25 years. I have never seen. He's in the 5 best high school players I've ever seen, and look, Leonard Fournette. When you saw Leonard Fournette was a guaranteed NFL player, right? But I'm talking about as a high school player, nobody has vision like Puka Williams. Watch some video of him, and in real life, it's amazing. He will hit a hole, and he's good between the tackles for a guy his size. Now, for a guy his size, he may not run between the tackles a lot in the SEC, but he will see linebackers and safeties at a 180-degree radius, and he's making cuts based on where people aren't yet. I've never seen a kid with his vision that can turn every play into a 60-yarder. The game with Puka Williams against Covington in the state quarterfinals, one of the most amazing high school games I've ever seen. And that was when Puka had 340 and had another 70-yarder called back. He is an unbelievable player, and I definitely believe that will translate to big-time college football.
You know what he is? Rocket Ismail. That's who he is. Rocket Ismail. Trying to tackle him is like trying to catch confetti or blowing up a balloon and letting it go. I mean, that's what it is, trying to tackle him. Now, he won't run between the tackles, but he can tease a little bit and maybe hit the outside tackle a little bit and hit the outside. But he's basically Rocket Ismail. And I know he played a while back. Punt returns, out in space, slot, that is Puka Williams. And they would use him. If they could use him like Notre Dame used Rocket, that's all you really need.
And Ed Ogeron said about his class, he said, we will bring in more running backs, and we have our eye on some dynamic guys. Beautiful. And I think he's right. Puka down. Yeah. And texted, I just talked about you.
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, Austin Thomas, who was the general manager, top recruiter for LSU, looked like he was defecting to Tennessee. Renee, what's the latest? Is he coming back to LSU? Is there some sour grapes there now?
I don't know, but Austin, I don't know him, but you'd have to think, he left LSU to go to USC. He left to go to Tennessee. That didn't work out. Man, I don't know. I'd have to really, really think if you want to take him back again. And I know he's done a really good job recruiting, but after a while, that's twice he's left, and I know you can't fault him for trying to move up, and Tennessee was his dream job, but it didn't work. I don't know why he didn't ask in advance. I don't know what transpired there, why he didn't ask Tennessee what was my role going to be, and then he took the job and backed off. I just think I'd be a little, maybe not shocked, but a little surprised if he comes back to LSU, because I think they're going to probably move on.
You got a take on that, Deb?
No, but I got Renee's take.
Right.
Yeah, and I would agree with Renee 100%.
Right. Guys, the Citrus Bowl against Notre Dame. Notre Dame suspends 2 players, Kevin Stevenson, wide receiver, running backs C.J. Holmes for shoplifting. Talk a little bit about this game, this matchup. This is a marquee matchup for the Tigers.
No doubt. If you look at the bowl games, I saw a list. CBS Sports did a list of all the bowl games, and there's a lot. And this was like in the top 10. I want to say they thought it was like the 8th best matchup, just for a fun-to-watch component. Yeah, it's LSU and Notre Dame, 2 of the best programs in the country. And I think a lot of what LSU did last year in the recruiting season was momentum carried over from the win against Louisville. Ed Ogeron needs every win. You want to have a 10-win season. You want to put every chip you can. I'm looking forward to it. And I think LSU comes out and plays hard. Now, they did announce that Arden Key won't play. We sort of suspected that.
What about Geis? You think he plays?
We think Darius Geis will play.
I think he will, yes.
Yeah.
Which would be great. And then I'm looking forward to it. I think LSU needs to win, and I think they know that.
Talk about that matchup.
I just did a story on Crescent City Sports, and everybody probably knows that Notre Dame was given the award for the top offensive line in the country. They averaged 6.37 yards per carry rushing. Their strength is against LSU's strength. They were one of the top rushing teams in the country. LSU is 12th in the country defensively. LSU is +8 turnover rate, giveaway takeaway. Notre Dame is +5. But it's going to be that offensive line. And the Notre Dame offensive line has 2 first-rounders on the left side, Nelson and McGlinchey. So that's going to be really tough. LSU is going to be, this is going to be the stiffest challenge, Alabama, Auburn aside, that they have faced this year. Yes, the offensive line that Notre Dame has. This is going to be the best offensive line. And you win in the pits, it'll be LSU's strength and Notre Dame's strength. And if I'm telling you, 6.3 yards is pretty stout, a carry. And they have, Wimbush is not a really good quarterback. He's a rushing guy. He hurries the ball, throws a lot of interceptions. He's sacked, I think 35 times he was sacked this year. He holds the ball a little long. So if they can slow the run down, you're not going to stop the run. If they can slow it down, LSU could win by 14 points. I'm not kidding you. It's not an easy task, but Josh Adams, 1,300 yards rushing for the Irish, 6'2", 225, big running back. So this is going to be the biggest challenge, rushing, stopping the run LSU's face this year.
Matt Canada's future at LSU.
I think he was looking. I still think it's a 60-40 chance he comes back. 60-40, yes. I think he was looking. LSU is not going to just let him go. They don't want to pay that off. I think Matt Canada probably looked around and said, I don't know if I can get a job for this kind of money anywhere else. And maybe thought that some people were going to be knocking on his door as a head coach. And I don't mean to go back to recruiting, but this also has a lot to do with signing day now. Kids wonder if the coach that has been recruiting them, they signed today, if he's going to be there after January. And that worries a lot of kids, the stability of a staff. And Matt Canada, in this case, has recruited a lot of people. And there have been some people, Jeff Grimes, they've asked about Jeff Grimes being gone. And so LSU has to patch those holes, knowing that Grimes is going to be gone, and what's the story in Matt Canada. So that's another thing with the early signing date that kids want to know who's my coach going to be and if he's still going to be there.
Your take on Canada?
Yeah, I think 3 weeks ago, I would have said 70-30 gone. It sure looked like it was going to happen.
Sure did.
Now, I'm not sure I'd say 60-40. I'd say it's 50-50. Neither one would surprise me at this moment. I'm not sure how well the Ogeron-Canada marriage worked. I hear different stories.
So
and I'm sure you've heard the same thing, right? That the marriage has been a little rocky at times. That doesn't mean you can't clean it up and get better and find a working arrangement. I still feel like he's going to find something and go, and LSU's going to let it happen. But but I don't feel as strongly as I did a few weeks ago. So, like I said, right now, I honestly wouldn't be surprised either way.
Tulane's class, talk about the early signing class.
Tulane did better than they have in at least a decade. Willie Fritz, this is year 3, so you have to start showing that. Last year, 24/7 Sports, one of the recruiting sites, is the one run by CBS Sports. Last year, they had Tulane with 4 3-star recruits. This year, and this is only one day into the signing period, they have 14.
Right.
Last year, their class was ranked 112th in America. Right now, it's ranked 66th, which is ahead of schools like Stanford. I mean, it is a huge step up that Willie Fritz has been able to make. And he put pieces in place. You could tell by watching that team, they were so close. And he said it after the early signing period that I think there were 4 games they lost by a total of 12 points. That they were really close. And this is by far his best recruiting class. 8 kids from inside the state of Louisiana, which is something he's got to do. He's got some outside too. He's mixed and matched. He's got some offensive linemen coming in. I think there is great reason for optimism at Tulane.
Excuse me. They finished.
You need me to keep going?
No, I'm good.
You gonna be okay?
I just got all choked up with you. But anyway, Tulane finished 66. He said he finished ahead of Troy.
Now I'm going to catch it. Go ahead.
Troy, SMU,
Right.
and Kansas State.
Sure.
They finished ahead of them. Excuse me.
4th in their conference, in
Right.
the
Yes.
American Conference, which they haven't been 4th in that conference
No.
in well, obviously the conference hadn't been around very long, but to be 4th in that conference, that's a quality conference.
Jeffrey Johnson is a guy who jumps out defensive tackle, who just committed and he signed. He had Auburn, Alabama, and Tennessee on him. He had a little bit of a health setback.
Did we take over again?
No, I'm good. Can you put your hand behind my back?
You don't sound good.
Anyway, can you run your hand up my jacket? Anyway, and so so Jeffrey Johnson, he had a health issue,
Right.
and schools backed off a little bit, and he did sign with Tulane. And Jamarian James from De La Salle, he's undersized. He's about 6'1.5".
Right.
He can be a Tanzel Smart. He can have that kind of impact.
Wow.
He's really that good, potentially. He squats 660. He's about 285 pounds. He's not a huge guy, 330 kind of guy, but he's about 6'1", about 285. And he's got quick hands. He plays basketball. He wrestles. Again, I compare him to a guy who potentially can be Tanzel Smart.
Yeah. 2 pros right there, that's for sure. Guys, Wojo, who is one of the best NBA writers out there, did an interview with Anthony Davis. He talked about his loyalty to the organization, but also kind of questions the organization's loyalty to him based off what's happened with other organizations, Boogie Cousins, Isaiah Thomas, how they were traded after not being told or traded. But one of the things that caught me in the interview is 22 times he mentioned winning. I guess my question to you is, I get he wants to win. Everybody wants to win. When does AD have to step up and demand winning from his teammates, from the organization? I mean, at some point, they're not playing quality basketball right now. They're not playing good basketball right now. There's 500, the way they're playing. I mean, it's hard to watch. At some point, he's got to show the leadership, in my opinion, and take control of this team. Even again, whether it's the coaching staff, the front office, or the players. And demand more out of them, demand unselfish basketball, demand offensive rebounds, getting rid of the turnovers, playing basketball the right way. He's the guy, even though the alpha male in there in that locker room is now Boogie Cousins, to me, he's got a guy that's got to be demanding. What y'all take?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. The Pelicans might be the most frustrating team to watch in the NBA because when they play right, when they do things the right way, they can be really good. And DeMarcus Cousins, and I was on with you a month ago, and I still feel the same way, although the more I watch him, the more I feel like I get it. DeMarcus Cousins is maybe the most physically talented guy of his size on this planet, right? He's the crazy, the nimble feet going to the basket, the things he can do for a guy his size. But he almost refuses to play on the block. He leads the NBA in turnovers. How do you have your 5 leading the league? I mean, that's what a point guard does. That's the bad that goes with the good from a point guard. He wants to control the ball, and I'm not sure that anyone on that team has done it. Well, I'm positive they haven't done a good enough job of telling him, you got to give up the ball. You can't be the guy taking it up court. You got to play on the block. And he hasn't been held accountable. And my guess is that's why he's out of Sacramento, because no one for years in Sacramento could ever get him to do that. And at this point, this is who he is. He's not going to change and become a different guy. And he is unbelievably frustrating, and he is the reason the team is sometimes really good and often not, and they're 500.
He stagnates the offense.
And there's so many times.
Yes.
No team in the NBA has suffered more steals than the Pelicans. They have had more steals taken away from them. There's only 2 teams that have more turnovers, the 76ers and the Lakers. So my point is, their problems are self-imposed. It's all about effort and things like that. Can you prevent turnovers? Sometimes you can. It's lazy and it's things like that. And having the ball stolen from you, it's just carelessness now. So if you can clean up those things or cut down a little bit, you're better off. And I'm going to tell you, it's amazing. The Pelicans almost have the same amount of turnovers as the Warriors, but the Warriors score more points. So, and the Warriors turn the ball over and all, but again, they make up for it. But again, the Pelicans' problems are self-imposed, and they can take care of it. It's all about effort. That's why Alvin Gentry sometimes is so frustrated at the end of a game.
Yeah, but I mean, from his standpoint, and I understand it's tough being a coach in the NBA because the players rule the roost there.
Sure.
But you got to be more demanding.
No doubt.
You've got to be more demanding.
And look, I like Alvin Gentry, but I think that is a big part of it. And I'm not sure the human exists who can make DeMarcus Cousins play the right way. But you have to hold someone accountable for him not doing what he should be doing, and that has to be the coach. It's why Sacramento went through so many coaches when he was there.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I say at some point, Anthony Davis has got to step up and take more of a leadership role. I understand the relationship between the players and how much he wants Boogie to be here, etc. But, I mean, again, he sees it. If we see it, he sees it. 166 turnovers this year from this guy. We're not even to really the halfway point of the season yet. Something's got to give here.
And that's one reason why as many teams as you think are not going to be beating the door down to get him, because he may self-destruct that locker room if he goes somewhere else. So you won't have every team in the NBA coming swooping down here trying to get a signature on a contract because they realize he brings some baggage with him.
Yeah, look, the way the whole thing played out, Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry went all in as a last-ditch effort because their jobs are on the line. So they're married to him now. Neither one of them are going to survive another rebuild. So at this point, they're all in.
And then the question is, again, as you mentioned, self-inflicted wounds. If they can turn this around and start playing more fundamental basketball, they've got the talent. Look, the supporting cast is finally doing something for this team. They're scoring. You're getting something out of the supporting cast. We thought it was going to be Anthony Davis and a bunch of guys. Those guys have stepped up. They're just not playing basketball the right way.
I think they're going to wind up spending the whole year hovering around 500, a couple games over.
Go back to dribbling around the chairs kind of thing, like you do in second grade.
And the Pelicans do a lot of that.
Yeah, they should do. A little bit too much of that.
Yeah, way too much.
No doubt about it. Doug Mouton, Renee Nato, thanks so much for being with us tonight on Inside New Orleans Sports. Merry Christmas, happy holidays
to you
and your family. All right, thanks so much for watching. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. Also, 9 o'clock, Pelican Sports Television. That's in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Catch me on the radio at least to the end of the month on 990 a.m. WGSO. That's 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The TuneIn Radio app. Great way to take the show with you anywhere. You can always listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. And starting in January, noon to 2, I'm joining the great lineup over at Sports 1280. Looking forward to that as well. You can download that iHeartRadio app and be able to catch my show anywhere there. Also want to thank our guests, Renee Nato, and also Doug Mouton, also the WLE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Kenny Juno, Trey Lopez, and my director, William Hill. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We'll see you right back here for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports next week. Thanks for watching.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com.